Hello everyone, Mrs. MLG here from Mighty Lancer Games. A member of our Discord community told us about the wrong-handed painting challenge, which is by the Defiant Hobbyist, who you can find on Instagram and TikTok. Now, this gentleman has MS and he wanted to raise awareness of MS by doing this painting challenge. Now, this has led him to have numbness in his hand, meaning that he has to paint miniatures with his off hand. And he wants us all to experience how difficult that is and just have a think about the challenges that people with MS may face on a day-to-day basis. Now, for me, that is my left hand because I am right-handed, and this is my attempt at the wrong-handed painting challenge to raise awareness for the MS Society, run by the Defiant Hobbyist. The first thing that I had to do was pick a mini. Now, I knew there was no point in picking one with lots and lots of detail or a face that I'd have to do eyes, because even with my right hand, that's never a good thing for me to be doing. So I decided to pick a skeleton. I like skeletons. So this was going to be a mini that I wanted to paint, but also maybe didn't have as much of a face to paint. I found that even remembering to hold the mini in my right hand so that I could paint with my left hand was a challenge before I'd even started. And then I found that simple things such as shaking the paint with my left hand was equally as hard, and I don't know why. It's just shaking paint. Couldn't do that either, but I'm giving it my best go, because that's the challenge after all. The challenge is to see how difficult trying to do something with your wrong hand, your off hand, is, and how some of the challenges that people with MS, just this tiny little part of it, and how difficult that is, so you can imagine how difficult other things are that you wouldn't even think about. But here we go, going to try and paint this skeleton. The first thing I had to do was move everything from the right hand side to the left hand side, because everything was still set up for me to paint, obviously, with my right hand. So I moved all the stuff, and then I took a deep breath and decided just to start painting. The first thing I noticed was how uncomfortable the paintbrush was in my hand. I decided that if I could hold it further down, I might have a little bit more control. I started with the shield because that was a fairly large part of the miniature and I was a little bit scared, to be honest. And we started with some model colour from Vallejo with chocolate brown and flat earth. I very, very slowly painted a shield brown. Probably the slowest I've ever painted a shield brown before, but that's what we're doing. I might actually speed this up now because it takes a little while for me to paint this shield brown. And there we are, my first attempt at painting something with my left hand, a brown shield that's not completely finished because it still needs the metal on, but that is now brown. Next, we're going to move on to the material parts of this miniature. For that, I'm going to use Citadel Colour Base Paint Corn Red. Cue the music. Next, I'm going to attempt to paint the bone colour, including the face, with Citadel Layer Paint New Shabty Bone. And I may even be getting slightly better at shaking the paint with my left hand as well. You may be able to notice, if you look really, really carefully, how I have absolutely no control over this paintbrush at all. And this paint is just blobbing all over this face, which is why I didn't want to do eyes. But I am trying, I'm very trying. Let's move this along, shall we? I'm going to use those same browns again to do the belt and try and not get brown all over the red that I've just painted on the cloth. Coats Surcoats Silver. When I first used this, I hadn't shaken it up enough and it was very dark and not the colour that it's supposed to be, so it needed a better shake. Hopefully you'll now be able to see how much brighter it is once it's had a really good shake. I'm now going to use Reaper Sepia Wash. I'm going to water it down a little bit so it's not quite as strong. I'm going to paint this over all of the bone colour to add some definition. This will go into the recesses, make those recesses darker and bring out some of the detail in the skeleton bone. Next up, some brown on his boots. I'm trying to use a limited palette because I want it to look dirty and skeleton-like, and I always think that if I have too many colours on the go, then it looks too bright and happy, and I don't want him to look like a bright, happy skeleton. He's been hacking people up with his axe, you know, he's bound to have muddy boots and a bit of grime on him, so that's what I want him to look like. So brown boots is what is happening now. After painting the brown straps on his leg and his boot, I realised that he's got cloth. He hasn't got a bone leg, he's got cloth on that side, and then the brown wrappings go around the cloth. So that's going to be red too, to tie in with his cloth on his body and the one that's wrapping round his bone leg. So I'm going to do a bit of touching up with the red, a bit more detail, because it's only had one coat, another coat, a bit more detail on the red, and we're also going to use some air paint, some Evil Sun's Scarlet, to add a little bit of highlights to the red and a bit more detail to this guy. I decided he still looked a little bit too clean, so I'm going to add some Citadel dry paint, Riser Rust, to add some texture to his armour. So now we're texturing with left hand as well. We must be getting brave. So add some texture, add some grime, add a bit of grit to his armour and make it not look quite so shiny and clean. Also noticed some bits that I've completely missed, or I've painted the wrong colour, or I've blobbed on a different colour that shouldn't be there. So I'm going to go back in and tidy those bits up. I think that's probably about as good as it's going to get. So we're going to clear the desk and get some basing. For that, we're going to use some Geek Gaming Scenics fast drying basing glue and some Kraut Cover Scenics Kodama Woods, both available from mightylancergames.co.uk, of course. I'm going to use an old paintbrush and I'm going to paint the fast drying basing glue straight onto the base of this miniature, and then I'm going to dunk it into the pot of Kodama Woods, and all of that lovely basing material will stick to the miniature, stick to the glue where I've put the glue, and therefore stick to the miniature and make my basing. Then just tap off the excess and wipe around with your finger. I'm going to paint my base rim black just to finish this miniature off. I hope you enjoyed the video. There are some pictures at the end so you can see what the skeleton looked like. Don't forget, this is all all in order to raise awareness for the MS Society, organised by the Defiant Hobbyist. Please go take a look at the Defiant Hobbyist. Join in the challenge. There are prizes that the Defiant Hobbyist has put up, all on their own, nothing to do with those. Mighty Lancer Games are just joining in because it's a good cause. No links or affiliates or anything like that. Go and join in on TikTok and Instagram and try and paint wrong-handed. Thank you for watching. Leave me a comment and tell me how you thought I got on.